Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. And welcome to It's Thin Lizzy Thursday. As I discuss Thin Lizzy's 10th album, released on October 10, 1980, Chinatown. This would be released on Vertigo Records in the UK. It would be released on Mercury in Canada, and it would be released on Warner Brothers Records here in the United States. This would be the first album to feature Snowy White on lead guitar, stand next to Scott Gorham. And this would be the last album to have a major hit single in the UK, with Killer on the Loose hitting number 10 in the UK. This would hit number 7 on the album charts in the UK. It would give the band a silver album, and it would hit number 120 on the Billboard Top 200 album charts here in the United States. The band at this time, we have Phil Lynott on bass guitar, keyboards, and vocals. We have Brian Downey on drums and percussion. We have Scott Gorham on lead and rhythm guitars and backing vocals. Snowy White on lead and rhythm guitar. Snowy White, before this album, was featured in Pink Floyd's touring band on the Animals album from 77 to 1978. Snowy White would stay with Thin Lizzy for the Renegade album, which would come out in 1981. He would also release several solo albums after this, and he would be featured predominantly in Roger Waters' live band and would be featured on several live albums by Roger Waters, most notably The Wall Live in Berlin from 1990. He also released albums under Snowy White and the White Flames and Snowy White's Blues Agency. So, also featured on this album, we have Darren Wharton on keyboards and vocals. He would become a full-time member of Thin Lizzy on their next album, Renegade. We have Midge Ure on backing vocals on Chinatown. And we have Fiacre Trench coming back and lending his string arrangements on the song Didn't I? Fiacre, of course, was featured on Vagabonds of the Western World and Johnny the Fox. And we have Tim Hinckley on electric piano on Didn't I? Tim Hinckley was the keyboardist on the song Running Back from Jailbreak, but he was uncredited. Of course, with the album cover, we got Jim Fitzpatrick here. We got the lights coming out of the dragon's eyes. This is an interesting album cover by Thin Lizzy. And again, we don't have the killer, now iconic Thin Lizzy logo. Production on here was done by the band, as well as Kit Wolven, who was the engineer on the Black Rose, a Rock Legend album. Let's get to the tracks. We Will Be Strong is not a strong opener. One thing you notice from the get-go: one, the production's a little on the glossy side. Two, Phil's vocals don't have the power and the soul that they had previously. The hard living, I believe, was starting to catch up to him. A little bit in the songwriting, but particularly on the vocal performances. Still a killer musician, but the vocals, it's like he's starting to strain a little bit, in my opinion. This song is a decent opener. We do have those great unison guitar lines, which we know and love Thin Lizzy for. Decent chorus on it as well, but it's not my favorite of their openers. Now, Chinatown, the blistering title cut, which I refer to as the cerebral brother of Bad Reputation. In this book, Honesty Is No Excuse, Thin Lizzy on record, is a killer track. Wicked bridge on here. The guitar lines on here are to die for. This is heavy. This is heavy metal Thin Lizzy, just like you had on the song Bad Reputation. Killer drumming performance here from Brian Downey. In my humble opinion, this is Brian Downey's finest drumming performance on a Thin Lizzy record. This is a kick-ass track. Awesome. Sweetheart. Here we're getting more melodic. We're letting those chords really ring. In the verses, we got a nice vocal melody here from Phil. We got those great unison guitar lines in the chorus. Nice sense of drama in the beginning and the bridge. Those are like the heaviest parts of the song. Nice call and response in the chorus as well. Very strong track. Sugar Blues starts out with that killer bass line. And yes, we have another in the long line of Phil's Substance songs, which sadly would become prophetic for him. But as a track killer, more great drumming goodness from Brian Downey on here. That bass line, as I mentioned, cool solos, very lyrical guitar solos on this. Excellent track. Killer on the Loose, their last top 10 hit in the UK. A lot of this was because of the song itself was very catchy and very well written. Part of this was also because at the time, the Yorkshire Ripper in the UK, known as Peter Sutcliffe, was being arrested and later charged for the murder of 13 people in the UK. And this was making headlines while this song comes out. And they put out a video where Phil plays Jack the Ripper. And he also, in the bridge, is in a much deeper voice, similar to what you hear on Do Anything You Want To from Black Rose, where he's voicing as Jack the Ripper. Now, this would give them a lot of controversy, but controversy sells. And it helped give them their last top 10 hit. Put that aside, it's a killer track. Very memorable, very melodic. Guitars on here are wonderful. Very spirited performance from the band. Very strong. Now we get into the second half of the album. And in this book, where I talk about the Chinatown album, and there was a lot of panelists on this book, I thought everybody did an outstanding job. Talk about their experiences with this band and analyzing the songs. I talk about Chinatown in this book, and I was quite critical of the next track called Having a Good Time. And I still think lyrically, I think this is corny. I'm not a fan of it. We're getting nostalgic, and the band's only in their early 30s, but maybe Phil did know his life wasn't going to be long. But the musical bridges are decent. It's an okay song musically, but the call outs of the band members before they do their little spots is, I don't know, it's like 1950s corny to me. And it's okay musically. The lyrics just never really grabbed me, and which is saying a lot because Phil was a wonderful lyricist throughout his career. So when he does something like this, it's going to jump out at me. Now, Genocide, the Killing of the Buffalo. This is killer. This is very driving. We got a long fade out on here. Lost sense of drama, very heavy and cutting, very strong chorus on it as well. This, I think, is the best song on the second half of the album. Didn't I? Now, Didn't I is the ballad. And in this book, I said, okay, they still do the ballads well, but this isn't as strong as what they did before. It's still strong. It just sounds a little dated for 1980. With the strings in it, it sounds more like 1973. But it's very well done. Phil still can sing a ballad well. He still has enough soul in his voice to really make it work. And there is some elegance with the strings, and those unison guitars sound beautiful on this. Very nice ballad. Nice bass lines in here as well. Maybe it's not on the level of something like Sweet Marie, but I think it's still very good. Hey You was a single in Germany only, and it's got some tough, harrowing lyrics on it. It's very mellow in the verses before it gets loud in the choruses. And when it gets really heavy in the middle, it kind of catches you by surprise because you think the album's going to go out with a whimper, but there's a heavy, ferocious middle in it. in that bridge before the guitar solos kick in, before it goes mellow again. So it's a bit of a surprise. It's a decent closer, just as We Will Be Strong was a decent opener. But this band is known for having kick-ass openers and closers. So as a longtime fan, it disappoints me a little bit. But what you have in the middle here, you got some of their best heavy songs in Chinatown and Sugar Blues. Killer on the Loose was a excellent single. Genocide's very good. Sweetheart's really cool. So this is Chinatown, Thin Lizzy's 10th album from 1980. So what do you think of this album? What do you think of Snowy White's tenure in Thin Lizzy? Do you think that he was a good fit for the band? Do you agree with me on Phil's vocals here? Or do you think he still sounds as strong as he did on Jailbreak and Johnny the Fox and Bad Reputation, or even those earlier folk records, which I think his vocals are wonderful on? What do you think of the songwriting here? Please let me know in the comments. Please join me next week for Thin Lizzy Thursday, where I will discuss Thin Lizzy's 11th album from 1981, Renegade. This book I've held up a few times. Honesty is no excuse, Thin Lizzy on record. This is a panel book with Martin Popoff and a string of panelists, many of us who have been on the Contrarians. Many of us also have our own YouTube channels. Definitely worth the purchase for the Thin Lizzy fan in your life. This is available at martinpopoff.com. You can also buy this on Amazon. Just to give you some programming notes, the ongoing series on Accept Studio albums, Up to the Limit, on my friend John Clauser's channel, My Music Corner, continues. That episode will have dropped by the time you watch this episode here. On the latest Accept show, we will be talking about their 2014 album, Blind Rage. This would be the third album with Mark Tornillo on vocals. And joining us to discuss the album will be none other than Mike Lodano from his excellent YouTube channel, Grab a Stack of Rock. Few days, I will be coming out with another episode of the Album War here on the Music Nut program. I will tell you there will be 3 bands with the same title, totally different genres, battling out for the best album with this specific title. And it's gonna be an interesting one because we got 3 totally different bands or artists, different genres on here. I may have to take a curtain call after I get done recording this episode. So, thank you so much for joining me today. Do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.